even when things get tough, just keep pushing because it will be worth it. And it's easy to give up and do something new, but you're just going to keep in that cycle if you don't keep pushing through the hard times. So take a listen to my new podcast with Kelsey, and we kind of dive in a little bit more on what this means. But I loved the advice she is giving. Just keep on pushing through.
Hello, fellow mompreneurs. Welcome to the Real Moms Podcast, the go-to space for resilient entrepreneurs who are striving for abundant living. I'm your host, Shay Spitz, a mompreneur and a realtor here in Columbus, Nebraska. Are you a mom juggling the hustle of entrepreneurship, family life, and personal growth? Well, you're in the right place. On this podcast, we dive deep into the real, unfiltered stories of incredible women who are navigating the journey of mompreneurship. We'll celebrate the victories, share practical insights, and acknowledge that it's okay to face challenges along the way. Success isn't about the destination. It's about the journey and the growth we experience as we balance our careers and the chaos of family life. Whether you're a seasoned mompreneur or just starting on this exciting path, join me and our amazing guests as we explore what it truly means to be a resilient entrepreneur striving for abundant living. Get ready for real, raw, and remarkable conversations that will inspire and uplift you. Because here at the Real Moms Podcast, we believe in the power of community, authenticity, and the strength that comes from embracing the journey together. So grab your coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into the world of mompreneurship. This is the Real Moms Podcast, where we celebrate the hustle, honor the struggle, and thrive as resilient entrepreneurs living abundantly. Welcome to another episode of Real Moms Podcast. I like to start every podcast off with a motivational quote, and today's quote is, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable." Today, I have Kelsey Musich. She thrives on meeting new people and finding meaningful ways to improve their lives. With over 12 years of experience in customer service, she excels at collaborating with clients to develop tailored solutions that meet their unique needs. Outside of her real estate career, Kelsey cherishes time with her husband and 3 children, often enjoying outdoor activities like walking, biking, and fishing. A proud graduate of Leadership Tomorrow, Class 37, she holds the Hall County community close to her heart and is passionate about giving back through volunteer work. So Kelsey, thank you so much for being here today with me on my podcast. So tell me, Kelsey, so you have 12 years of experience in customer service, but you have been a real estate agent for almost a year and a half. Tell me a little bit about that journey and what got you to where you're at today.
Yeah, so I graduated UNL with a communication studies major. And once I left there, I moved to Kansas for my husband. He was in school to be a chiropractor. And from there, I was a marketing manager, an office manager, and a salesperson for a siding and window company. So I've always worked with customers, putting them first. From there, we moved to Grand Island, and I started working at an equipment finance company. When I was there, I did several different roles, but always working for my customer. My last position there was customer service manager. So I'm a people pleaser. I love working with people. So putting them first has always been something that I've enjoyed, helping them with things. And so when I wanted to go out and do something kind of on my own, be in control of my success while also being there for my kids, because being mom is obviously most important thing to me. I was like, why not try real estate? It's something where I can push myself to be as successful as I want to, but also schedule things around my family. So I went into real estate, and it has truly been wonderful for me. What's more important than helping with somebody with something that's like the biggest purchase of their life, right? So I thrive on having my customers have a great experience the whole way through. So customer service is something I've always done.
So what is something that, having that customer service all the way through, is there anything that you do maybe differently that most agents do or don't do that sets you apart a little bit?
So what I try to do is I really want to build a relationship with my client. It's not about how many transactions can I get. I honestly don't care how many transactions I do. It's more about building that relationship with my client, making sure that they have a smooth experience the whole way through. As you can imagine, and real estate can be really stressful. Buying a house can be super stressful. Selling a house can be stressful. So I'm there to take that stress off of my clients, making sure that I have clear communication the whole way through. I'm really explaining things. When I meet with a buyer, I make sure I spend that time to really get to know them. What is truly most important? They may think something's really important, but the more I talk to them and get to know them, I can find additional things that are important to them. So really just working to build that relationship, that trust with them so we can find that perfect home, and then communicating to make sure the process is smooth the whole way through.
Right. And I always tell my clients, I always remind them like, hey, even if you've asked me something 100 times, ask me again, because especially when we do this on a daily basis, a lot of times we brush over something that to us is very simple, but to them it's like, what did you just say? Like you just totally spoke a different language. And sometimes we don't realize that, like it could be something so simple to us as far as like the earnest deposit. Like, hey, take the earnest deposit to this title company. And I always send them a text like, hey, I've broken it down, but it took me time or lessons to remind them, hey, you need to write a check. It can be a personal check. It does get cash. It gets held at the trust account at the title company. Because I've had situations, there's been only like 1 or 2 times where I tell them that, but I guess I didn't explain to them that the money gets cashed. They thought the title company was just going to hold the check. So, but that's on me. That's not their fault. That was on me for not explaining it. But something as simple as that, like, hey, take a check to the title company for this much to this title company, but then reminding them like it does get cashed, because then they had a overdraw fee and a whole thing. So they weren't mad. They were just like, oh, I didn't understand that. I didn't realize that. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And I actually offered to pay for their overdraft fee. But little things like that you don't realize that you learn through experience. That's not something you're going to be taught in class. And until you actually experience it, you don't realize the importance of communicating that.
Right. There's so many things that you learn in class, but there is nothing like learning in the field. There's so many things that you don't get taught and you can't prepare for it until you just experience it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So why real estate? What prompted you to go the real estate route?
So I am a person that's very self-motivated. And I know that in sales, you have to be self-motivated. But like I said, to me, it's not sales. Like I'm not in this for sales. I'm in it for the relationship. And this is something where you can do that. You can be in a position where you are more focused on your clients and their experience, where it doesn't matter how many sales you have. And for me, it helped when I was looking to change careers. I met with several brokerages, and finding a place that has a good culture and it's a team like feels like a family. So having a good culture is super important. And where I'm at, they're great. They're like, if you want to walk, we'll walk. If you want to run, we'll run with you. Whatever you want to do. But also, being able to have a career that I can kind of schedule around my children is great for me, because we have no family here.
Yeah.
So it's just me, my husband, and my kids. We don't have somebody to just help us out with our kids. So, dropping off at school, picking up from school, all the activities, my kids are in like everything. So having something where I can prioritize my family while also prioritizing my clients is really important to me. So that's kind of what led me into real estate.
Yeah. Now, was that challenging, taking that leap and going from secured, and I do this because I don't think anything is secure in all reality. A W-2 is not a secure income, but a consistent typically. Was that tough for you to go from like this consistent income to like taking that leap of faith? Did you go 100%? Did you kind of ease into it? What did you do?
So I actually went 100%. Where I was at before, I had been there for 8 years. So I gave them a month's notice, and I had been working on my online courses at that time. So my last day there, the next morning, I went and took my test. And luckily I passed right away, which was great. But no, I didn't have another job that I was doing. I just jumped in and I was doing this full time. It was really helpful with my husband's background, financially, we're fine with him. So it wasn't as much pressure as maybe some people may experience. But I will tell you, it has been a huge adjustment. You go from a position where you have a check every 2 weeks, And you go into sales where you get paid when you sell and you close. Most
Right.
people don't realize that we don't get paid until the transaction closes.
Right.
So if you're showing a client 30 houses and
Mhm.
it takes months for them to even find the one and then another 4 weeks to close, you don't get paid until it's done.
Right.
So I'm sure that you've experienced that as well. It's a big change.
It is. It is. There can be so much. I mean, I mean, kind of like what you were saying before, like you dictate what your income is going to be, how much you want to work, how hard you want to work. But it's not just hard work. You also have to think smarter. You also have to think more creative. And as time goes, you get that experience. You can start implementing other resources, paying for other leads and whatever else. But one of the main things that I recommend to any, especially newer agents, is yes, your sphere is important, but as a newer agent, like getting those online leads is probably one of the most important things because we get very upset, especially when you're new, when a family member doesn't use us. But in all reality, we have to remember this is one of their biggest purchases of their entire life, that they want to make sure that they are being represented. So when you're brand new to the industry, in all reality, like I don't want to work with somebody who's brand new and maybe doesn't know enough about it. But when you start gaining that experience and they start seeing you online, they will start coming to you. So like I know I'm 6 years into it, but now within the last year, 2 years, I've now finally started getting family coming to me and asking me these questions. And there were times where I did get upset because I've had family members use somebody else and I was very upset. But you need to be able to pull that back and be like, okay, we can't take this personal. Everybody makes decisions based off of what's going to be best for them and their family in that current position. So I had to take a step back because it is very hurtful. We take it personal, but we can't, you know what I mean? So
Right.
times change, and as you grow and as you get better and you have that experience, people will see that and then they will start coming back to you.
Right.
Where do you
And,
get, oh, go ahead.
if you look at the stats now, most people don't stay in their homes as long as they used to either.
Oh,
So, they may have sold when you first got your license, but they could be looking to buy or sell again in another year.
right.
And now you have that experience.
Right. It's funny because when I got into real estate, I came from a very small community and I have a big family, but everybody lived in the same house for 30, 40, 50 years, you know? So
Yep.
when I got into real estate and they told me that the average time in a house was like 6 to 10 years, I'm like, huh? What? That is my grandparents just celebrated their 68th anniversary in their house. Like, you know what I mean? So it was the craziest thing to me. So I don't even know why I got into real estate. But I mean, if you think about it, like I didn't know people moved that much. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. But no, yeah, it was just it was definitely a different mindset around all of that. So how do you handle like your kids' activities and your mom life and then the real estate world? I know there's a little bit of a balance. There's give and take, weekends, not weekends, evenings, things like that. But how do you handle it physically and emotionally?
I feel like work-life balance is so important. And
Hmm.
obviously, as a mom, our children always come first, right? Um, so I just, when my kids want to do something, a sporting event, we just do it because they're only little once, is the
Hmm.
thing. And I just make sure that I know what my children's schedule is, and then I can schedule my showings around that.
Right.
Yes, you do in real estate, obviously, work more weekends, more evenings. But when you have an open house, it's for an hour to 2 hours, and then you're home again.
Hmm.
So you can still serve your clients very well and also have that time with your family. Like a non-negotiable for me is we're going to eat dinner together every night. So we
Hmm.
eat dinner together. My phone might be ringing, but we're eating dinner together.
Right.
Um, so we do just make sure that we have that time. And also, like, because I'm busier in the evenings and on the weekends, I also have that time when my kids get out of school where I can be with them.
Hmm.
So I try to schedule my clients during the day if they can, knowing they also work most of the time.
Right.
But then we do evenings, and I just make sure it's after my husband's home from work because, like I said, my kids go to daycare too, but also, when my husband's home, I can go and meet with my clients then.
Right. Right. And I think it is an adjustment for relationships too, because I know with my husband and I, we had to go through some growing pains because yes, you want to be there for your kids, but
what I have also learned, one of my very most important relationships is with my husband, though, too, because without my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my kids suffer as well. But it is a lot of growing pains because we're kind of giving up, like, yes, we could be there for our kids right after school, but then, like, what about our husband? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of like give and take and a little bit of guilty feelings once in a while, but it's just having that open communication with your significant other and listening to what they're feeling and what they're thinking and all of that too, because it's an adjustment. It's not just an adjustment for us as moms, but it's an adjustment for our husbands as well, because they're so used to most men are so used to the wife taking the kids to school, the wife picking them up, the wife, helping put them to bed and supper and all of those things. So one of the biggest things that I would say that just kind of naturally transformed is I still take my kids every day to school and daycare. It's about 50-50 picking up, but he's usually the one making supper. I'm usually coming home a little bit later but he's usually the one making supper. And that just the mental load of somebody else making supper is like a game changer. I'm not joking. It is. And he's, I mean, it is not like they're supper ready, but like he at least gets it started and then I help. But like, the mental load of that alone is just so much better.
You do have to rely on each other. It's a team
Yeah.
effort, right? So
Yes.
it does take both of you working together to keep everything functioning the way that it needs to for everyone to be happy. But like you said, it is important to have that time with your spouse as well. So we do try to do like set a time where we get a babysitter and we go out for a date night because it is important. And that looks like a lot of different things. My husband's a big hunter. So like right now, date night could be in the deer blind. But you know what? Whatever you can do to get time
Right.
together, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And it just fills both of our cups when we can do that. So,
Yeah.
and it's better for our kids. Like we're in a better mood when we've had time to ourselves too.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. So your husband hunts, does he bow hunt?
Yeah, he's a bow hunter.
Same with my husband. My husband doesn't even rifle hunt at all. I don't know the last time he even went rifle hunting, but yeah, my husband's a bow hunter. So from September till end of November, maybe beginning of December, he does a lot of hunting. So kids are tagging along with me a lot more to evening showings and open houses and but my kids learn a lot from that too. They learn a lot from how to behave, how to talk to other people. I mean, they're still going to be kids. Yes, they are not wonderful 24/7, but I mean, that's something that I've brought them with to listing appointments and showings and open houses before, and they learn how to adjust with it all.
Well, and they're a sponge too. Like you think that they're not listening to you, but they're listening to everything. And it is so funny the things that my kids pick up and they will say in conversation to another person.
Yeah.
Or like my little girl, she'll be like, Mom, you going to sell houses today? She's 3. And so it's just fun when they know what you do.
Right.
And they can talk to other people about it.
Yeah. I mean, your kids are your best advertisers in all reality. Actually, not even my kids. I have a client who I need to get t-shirts made because this little boy, I tell you what, if I gave him 5 shirts that had my information on it, he would wear them every single day. It is the cutest thing. Like I even gave him, I mean, I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm like, I just need to get him a t-shirt with my information, my logo and my name and phone number and everything. And she's like, oh, Shay, he would wear them every single day. He would wear them every single day. And it is the cutest thing. And I think for me, like my niche is more so families with little kids because that's the world that I live in right now, but it is so much fun I've had clients send me videos of I have one that I can think of specifically where her daughter like was crying because she realized that I wasn't moving in with them.
Oh.
Yeah, she sent a video of her daughter like crying. She's like, but I want Shay to be here. Why isn't she here? And she's like, well, Shay's with her family. So that's one of my very favorite videos. And it's just the cutest thing in the entire world.
That's funny. Well, because you go through a lot with families when they're buying.
You do.
You build that relationship.
Yeah. And with those kids too, you don't want to just make the relationship with the parents, but with those kids and the kids or have relationships with the kids too. Like there's been times where I've done showings and there's like 7 kids because I got my 3 and they got their 4.
And it's
Yeah.
not ideal, but sometimes that's just what you got to do. I mean, you got to bring the kids with occasionally. So, and then they make friends and they play, and it's just a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Have you experienced any growing pains since, kind of diving into your own world?
Yeah. I mean, in my first 6 months, I did 12 transactions. And so I kind of set myself up. I do goals for myself,
Hmm.
obviously, every year. And so this year, it has been a very interesting year for sure. It's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of people, had a lot of relationships, and, you know, done where I've wanted to for my goals. Um, but there's a lot to it in being an entrepreneur. You are the one out there marketing yourself, putting yourself out there. Um, so there is a lot, and sometimes you just have to get really good at time management and organization to be able to keep yourself on track and keep moving forward. Because the second you let your foot off the gas, you're going to fall behind. And then you're going to see that effect in 4 weeks to 6 weeks later. So you have to just keep going and keep pushing yourself, even when you're like, oh, yeah, I could really use a break, or,
Right.
oh, I don't want to do anything today. Not an option. You get up and you got to go.
Right, right. And that's it. I actually was sitting through a like a training yesterday, and he was talking about prospecting, and he said, it goes like this in all reality. But we need to get to a point where it's more like this and trending up. But what happens is when we do get super busy, we stop prospecting. Well, we don't feel the consequences of not prospecting for another 30, 60, sometimes 90 days. Like that's how long it can take you. So you don't focus on it when you have these transactions and you have these deals closing, because that's what you're focusing on. You're trying to get them to closing. But then you let it slip that you're not prospecting anymore. So you don't feel those consequences until 30, 40, or 30, 60 days later. And that's kind of where I'm starting to get to too. And I'm like, okay, well, it's slowing down. So where was I at 30, 60, 90 days ago that caused it to slow down a little bit more? You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, well, this happened
Right.
and that happened. I'm focusing on this. I'm doing this. I'm like, okay, but I still need to get that discipline down on prospecting every single day. And I think I do a good job. But then when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, no, I wasn't doing what I really needed to do because I was so focused on these things in the personal life and in business, but primarily personal things were going on that kind of took my mental load
Yeah.
away. So, but that's fine. I mean, that's just how life goes. And I just got to kick it back into gear and get back into my consistent daily habits of doing those things.
And it is, I mean, I feel like real estate is a roller coaster ride.
Mhm.
And sometimes you get down and you're just there for a while, kind of teetering back and forth. And it's like, okay, what can I do to get past this?
Right.
And there are a lot of things that obviously we're in control of, that prospecting.
Mhm.
Can't let off the prospecting. You got to keep going. But
Mhm.
then, like, it is just naturally slower around election time, around
Mhm.
Thanksgiving and Christmas. It
Mhm.
just slows down. And so that is something that has been really hard to get used to.
Yeah.
Um, but as long as we're doing everything we can and just keep on prospecting, that's all we can do. Everything else, is kind of out of our control. And I like to remind myself, you can only control what you can control. So
Right.
you got to let everything else go.
Right. And people, as long as you keep going and don't give up. And one of the things that Matt Reif, I'm sure you guys know who he is. I love Matt Reif. But one of the things that he was talking about during an interview, because his story is pretty phenomenal prior to him blowing up with his success. I mean, he had 11 years of going to, doing comedy, doing it for free. Honestly, it was costing him money because he had to pay for his own travel. He said on average out in California, he was making $60,000 a year for the last 11 years. And he said the week before everything kind of took off for him because he started using social media. He was very against social media for the longest time. And people were like, no, you need to start posting to social media. So that's when he started posting to social media, and that's when it blew up. And he said the week before he had actually talked to a friend of his, and he talked about just going and finding a job and getting out of California. And he just said people don't fail, they quit. And that could not be more true. That not if you get knocked down, but when you get knocked down, if you stay down, there was another quote that I had heard here recently is, you don't drown by falling into the water, you drown by staying there. And I'm like, oh,
Oh my gosh, that is good. That's good. Like you're gonna fall in, and that's fine, but you're not gonna drown if you fall in. You're gonna drown if you stay in. So I thought that was a pretty good analogy to kind of put your mind in perspective when it comes to that. But the other challenging part, what I have really started digging into now, and it's kind of fun, and I never really thought I would say that, is like the tax side of things. It's not about the money that you make, because if you ever make quite a bit of money, or you make a good amount of money and you look back and you're like, where did all of that go?
Yeah.
What? How did that happen? Where the heck did it go? Because I would say I'm a very conservative person. People call me cheap in my reality or my personal world. But so I don't like go out there and spend a ton of money, but I do spend a lot of money to go back into my business. But you look back and you're like, where did that go? So, and then taxes is a big thing too, especially when you're new and you don't really understand all of that. But one of the biggest things that I'm really focusing on this year that I've really started learning and going to be implementing and have started implementing is how to retain your money and to build your future and your success, and focusing on your retirement, because we can't rely on the government and Social Security. It's not it's not realistic. It's not. But I don't think people put enough emphasis on, okay, where are we going, not where I'm at. And it's not about my earned income. It's about where can I put my money today that will generate the most money for me in the future without having um, those taxes when I pull my money out, but then also paying your own kids. Like, how do you file? Do you have an LLC? Do you have an S corp? Do you have payroll? Do you pay yourself a salary? And then like, do you save on self-employment tax? I mean, there is so much to it. It's kind of exciting once you start learning it, and then you realize, oh, if I would have done this, it would have saved me this much money from paying into taxes. Because in all reality, if I can pay somebody else here locally, like a charity, a good amount of money and do a donation versus paying the IRS, you bet yourself I'm going to be doing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I would rather do that, because if I give it to the IRS, that IRS is not going to put that money back into the charity. It is not. It's not going to put it back in my church. So those are kind of fun things. And then now I've just it finally clicked a couple of weeks ago on how to pay your kids. Because if you're an S corp, you can't pay your kids unless they're on payroll, and then you have to pay payroll taxes and stuff like that. But I found a way that you could still pay your kids. They don't have to collect any income. And then you get that tax deduction, and then you can use that money to pay for some of their activities, but also you set up a Roth IRA for them that grows tax-free. And like
Mm-hmm.
when they pull it out in 20, 30, 40 years, $6,500 a year. If you put $6,500 a year, or $6,500 into a Roth for one of your kids one time, in 30 years, that could grow to be $1 million. Like, and that's tax free, but they didn't have to pay
Yeah.
income tax on it when you put it in. It is like, I don't know, like this stuff is starting to get pretty fun for me. I'm super excited. Like, it's a lot, and it's a lot to like get things set up, but it's pretty exciting. That sounds maybe not very exciting, but I'm excited about it.
I think a lot of people, when they become entrepreneurs, and you have to be very diligent about setting money aside for your taxes,
Oh
because
yeah.
it could be very easy to get that check. Taxes aren't taken out, and it's like, ooh, okay, you know? So you have to really have a system set up. Like, I'm going to put 10% aside for marketing. I'm going to put 20% aside for taxes. I'm putting this amount away. And then when you look at what you actually have left, it's like, oh, okay, well,
Go get a steak dinner.
um, but I do think that everyone should have to go through a class to learn the tax side of it. Because, like you're saying, okay, you're just diving into all of this. And if you would have known that right away, how great would that have been, right?
Mhm. Right.
Um, so it can be kind of hard, but there is a lot of stuff out there. You just have to do digging or know the right people to learn about it.
And that's what it is, because you can take classes, but unfortunately, like the classes that I've taken don't break it down to that extent. Because this sounds terrible, but I feel like some of those classes, they just teach you the basics to get your taxes lower now than in the future. So that's not really the game plan that I want to set up. I would rather pay the taxes on my income now, but then be able to invest it in other ways where I can, that it grows tax free. So when I do go pull it out in the future, I'm not taxed on that money. So it's all in how you want to kind of set up your own thing. So
and I think that's where we all get caught up is like the shiny object syndrome. It's like this and this and this. Oh, I should do this. I should do this. But until you really understand it, you really need to understand where you're putting your money and if that's in alignment with where your future is at. Because I would rather pay, like I said, I would rather pay money on the income that I make today and put my money somewhere that grows tax free at a 10%, 15%, whatever the return is. That way, when I go pull that out in the future, I don't have to take out taxes on it. Like
Right.
my financial planner, he was telling me, he's like, he has a lot of W-2 where if you work a W-2, you want to match what your employer is doing. But when they get to retirement and they need, say, $3,000 to live off of, well, they actually have to pay or pull out $3,800 to live off of because $800 of that is going to go to taxes. And that eats into your retirement so much faster than you ever anticipate.
Yeah.
People think of that. They think of now, how can I keep more money in my pocket now? Life is either hard now and easy later or easy now and hard later. Choose your hard.
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah,
And I want it easier when I'm older.
100%. Like I can grind. I have the energy to grind right now. Do I always want to? No. But I have the energy. I have the capability of doing it. So I'd rather make it hard for me now and life a little bit easier in the future. And that goes for your nutrition too. That goes for your health too. Like if you don't take care of your health now, it's going to be a whole of a hell of a lot harder in the future.
Right. You
So
got to take care of yourself, put yourself first.
you do in all aspects. My sponsor with EXP, his 5 core values are faith, health, relationship, business, and finances. And he said like the first 3 things are the most important things that you can do to set success. It's not about your business and finances because without those other 3, you don't have a foundation to grow off of. And it's just kind of mind blowing,
Yeah.
but yeah. So where do you see your future going with your business and your family and everything?
Yeah. I love what I do. I'll be staying in real estate and I plan to continue to grow. Um, Pushing myself every year, pushing myself out of my comfort zone has been something that I've been trying to do more and more. I am not typically one to get on a camera, so even coming on today was like a big deal for me. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And even like TikToks, we've started talking about TikToks, and I'm like, that's a whole nother world. That is just not me.
No.
But I've done a couple of them. So pushing myself outside my comfort zone is only going to help me grow. So it's
Mhm.
something that I need to continue to do. And I know that. So just working on the things that make me uncomfortable so that I can continue to grow, but
Mhm.
also have that time with my family.
Right, right. I know my husband always gives me a hard time because when I get bored, that's when I'm like, what else do I need to do? So he gave me a hard time the other day because this was a couple weeks or maybe a few months ago. I told him, I said, hey, I really think you should do this because he got into real estate too, like 3 years ago. And I was like, hey, you should do this and that you should do this. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm just in between appointments. He's like, holy shit, find something to do. Like, go find something. I'm like, oh, okay. It was literally like 5-10 minutes, and that's what my mind does. But he's like, holy shit, just go find something to do. Stop thinking of things for him to do. I'm like, well, but we could. But yeah, no, I've definitely gotten to the point where I don't realize when I start getting really comfortable that it kind of takes me a little while. Like I'm like, holy shnikers. Like I am very comfortable. Something needs to change. And I start thinking, okay, what needs to change? What do I need to do? And that's how I purchased an old church, converted it into an Airbnb. I purchased other investment properties, working on a development right now. But there's a lot of things that like, when I get bored, that's when my creativity comes out. So that's why my husband's like, you just need to stay busy. Just stay busy. But yeah, so Kelsey, what is one piece of advice that you would give to maybe your younger self or maybe somebody else who's starting into the entrepreneurship realm? What's one piece of advice that you would give them?
I would say, even when you think that things are hard, just keep on pushing because the end result is worth it. It's easy to give up and walk away from something and just try something new.
Mhm.
But anything worthwhile is worth fighting for. So you just have to keep pushing through all the hard times and lean on those around you. It's important to have a good foundation around you, good family members support. So just lean into them and just keep on pushing for something that you really want.
Right.
Right. And if you don't have the support from your family and your friends, because I know that there's people out there who don't have that support,
Yeah.
um, find your own, create it. That there are, so that's why I created this Real Moms. I mean, I have support from my family and my husband and stuff like that, but I needed and friends, but I needed a different support group that understood the mompreneurship because my other friends that I grew up with forever, they're W-2. So they don't have the mental stress of what an entrepreneurship is, what it's like, because you wake up every day unemployed. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's nothing wrong with it by any means. And I know that they're busy and they get stressed with their work too, but it's just different. So I wanted to create this real moms community for mompreneurs where we can rely on one another. We can confide in one another when we are having hard times, because everybody has hard times at different stages of life and in different stages of business and personal and everything. So that's why I wanted to create this community, is like, okay, well, when I am struggling, I know I can confide in them when I'm having a hard time. My husband's always there too. Like whenever I have a hard day, I'm like, hey, I can't do this today. He's like, well, just come home and we'll go snuggle. I don't know. I've done that before. I'm not always like a huge snuggler, but hey, you know what? Sometimes we need that. So, but
Yeah. Well,
yes.
and it's important too to have a group, even like you said, like this group, people who are going through the same thing. It doesn't have to be family, doesn't have to be your spouse, but also knowing that when you're having a hard day, talk about it.
Mhm.
There's so many people who are like, you see the picture perfect person on social media.
Yeah.
That's what they want people to see. That's
Yeah.
not real life.
No.
We all go through ups and downs. And the more open you are to talking about it, you're going to find someone who's been through something similar
Oh
and
my
can give you
gosh.
advice instead of just holding it in and trying to deal with it and get through it yourself. It's much better to talk about it and just get it out. Like I said, somebody's gone through something similar and
Yeah.
they're there to help you.
Right.
They're not going to tear you down.
No, no. I mean, you want to be a little bit conservative on who you do open up to, but when you do
Yeah.
find them, like you kind of know, you
Yeah.
have that feeling and that intuition, like, no, I can trust them. And like there was a mom from our group who I've been talking to, and she's been going through some hard times personally and in business. And she finally broke down and she's like, Shay, I don't want you to see me like this. I don't want you to see me crying or view me as a weak person, because I'm not. I want you to know that I'm very strong. I'm like, oh my gosh, believe me, you know how many times I break down? It is yeah, like there is that picture perfect on social media, but I want people to know that that is not reality. That was one glimpse of me smiling and I had good lighting because the sun was bright, and or I have like a ring light right in front of me. That's why I look so bright right now. But you know what I mean? Like that's not real. I mean, it is real, but we all have our breakdowns. We all have our emotional side of things. And like she just kept apologizing over and over. I'm like, stop. Like that's human. I don't want
Right.
to think that you are this rock solid, because especially as a woman, we have our masculine energy that we thrive off of in our entrepreneurship world, but then we also have the feminine side where we need to have those emotional breakdowns. We need to have somebody who's going to be there and hug us and support us. And if you don't have that at home, you're living in your masculine energy 24/7, and that is not good for anybody. That's not even good for men. Men need to tap into their feminine side too. It's a whole thing that it's really interesting if you learn about men and women, and both sides have both masculine and feminine energy that we need to tap into. Um, and when you're an entrepreneur as a woman, you live in that masculine energy a lot. So when we go home and our husband's like, "Hey, do you want to go do something tonight?" And you're like, "Sure." It's like, "Okay, well, we need to find somebody for the kids." I don't want to go. I want to stay home then. But if I come
Yeah.
home and my husband's like, "Hey, Shay, so and so is coming over to watch the kids. We're gonna go get dressed. Like I got a place to eat. Done and done. I will go. I don't have to think about anything. That's amazing. But if I have to think about things after I come home, I don't want to do it. I would rather just lay down and not do anything. So I don't know if that's you, but that's how I am.
Oh, that's
Would,
funny.
would you agree? But like if you came
Yeah.
home and like things were already planned in advance, or your husband took care of it, like you're more willing to go out and do something. But if you come home and you now have to find a babysitter and make a decision on where you're going to go, like it just doesn't sound as appealing. Like that sounds
Right.
exhausting.
Yeah, it's not worth the energy. I'd rather just spend my energy with you guys.
Right, right. I would just rather stay home and like play a board game, like, you know what I mean? But if
Yeah,
it's already planned or somebody else took care of it and planned it, I'm all for it. Let's go.
yeah, I'm with you.
Yes, awesome. Well, Kelsey, how can somebody get a hold of you if they're looking to buy or sell in the Grand Island area? Is that right? That's where you're at?
Yeah,
Okay, so
I'm
how can
located
they
in
get a
Grand
hold of
Island.
you?
You can call me. My phone
Yeah.
number is 308-833-0200. Or you can go on my website. It's Kelsey, Kelsey .soldwithsummit.com.
Awesome. 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 Well, thank you so much for being here, Kelsey, and taking time out of your day. And I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you for having me. Have a great
Yes.
day.
You too.
Bye.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Real Moms Podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story and insights today. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And hey, sharing is caring, right? Share this podcast with your fellow mompreneurs, friends, and anyone who you feel could use a dose of inspiration. Share it on your social media as well. But most importantly, if you found this episode helpful, please, please, please leave me a 5-star review. This helps get our information out to those who have never heard or seen us before. Are you feeling inspired and you're sure that you could add some value to the podcast? Shoot me a message and let's talk. We love hearing from you. So connect with us on social media. Tag me at Shay J Spitz. That's ShaeJSpitz. And share your thoughts and takeaways, or even suggest topics you'd like to have us explore more in the future episodes. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. Your resilience is your strength, and your pursuit of abundant living is truly remarkable. As always, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep embracing the beautiful chaos of being a mompreneur. Until next time, take care, stay real, and keep living abundantly.